Let's get started. Start with listening, and then learn new words and practice them in sentences.
Few events in recent history have shaken Europe like Brexit. The UK's decision to leave the EU exposed deep divisions within British society and raised questions about European integration. Brexit was more than a political divorce. It tapped into broader anxieties about globalization, immigration, and national sovereignty. The 2016 referendum, with 52% voting to leave, revealed a stark geographical, generational, and socioeconomic split, deepening divisions and fueling social tensions. To understand Brexit, one must delve into historical grievances, economic anxieties, and cultural fears. Euroscepticism simmered within British politics, viewing the EU as an undemocratic behemoth eroding British sovereignty. Immigration became a central battleground, with critics arguing it strained public services and depressed wages. The 2008 financial crisis and subsequent Eurozone crisis eroded public trust in the EU. The Leave campaign exploited these grievances, offering a simple message: take back control. This resonated with voters who felt disenfranchised and disillusioned with the political establishment. Brexit was portrayed as a path to British sovereignty, economic prosperity, and national renewal. The economic consequences of Brexit have been intensely debated. Increased trade barriers and bureaucratic hurdles have led to higher costs and reduced competitiveness. The pound sterling plummeted, pushing up inflation and eroding consumer purchasing power. The UK government has sought to mitigate the impact by striking new trade deals, but these are unlikely to fully compensate for the loss of EU trade. The long-term economic impact of Brexit will depend on future trading relationships, government policies, and the global economic environment. Beyond economics, Brexit has profoundly impacted British society, exacerbating social divisions and fueling uncertainty. The referendum campaign unleashed divisive rhetoric, often laced with xenophobia and nationalism. The vote to leave the EU led to a questioning of national identity and belonging. Younger generations, who valued their European identity, felt the loss of EU citizenship keenly. The debate over Scottish independence was reignited, with a majority of Scots having voted to remain in the EU. Communities with large immigrant populations reported increased hate crimes and discrimination. Brexit exacerbated existing social divisions based on class, education, and geography. The geographical divide fueled resentment and polarization within British society. The Irish border proved intractable in Brexit negotiations. The Good Friday Agreement established an open border, fostering peace and economic integration. Brexit threatened this peace by necessitating a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic. The Northern Ireland Protocol aimed to prevent a hard border, but created a trade barrier in the Irish Sea. Unionists in Northern Ireland opposed the protocol, arguing it undermined their place in the UK. The Democratic Unionist Party refused to participate in the power-sharing government in protest. The UK government threatened to override parts of the protocol, raising tensions with the EU. Brexit's impact has been uneven across the UK. London, the financial hub, was hit hard, with businesses relocating to other European cities. The manufacturing sector faced delays, increased costs, and reduced competitiveness. The agriculture sector struggled with labor shortages and uncertainty over subsidies. Some sectors benefited, with the weaker pound boosting exports and tourism. However, these gains were offset by negative impacts on other sectors. Brexit exacerbated regional inequalities, with prosperous regions relatively insulated from negative consequences. Struggling regions faced significant challenges due to the loss of EU funding and decline in manufacturing output. Brexit challenged the EU's fundamental principles and raised questions about its future direction. The UK's departure left a void in the EU's institutional architecture and geopolitical weight. Eurosceptic and populist movements across Europe were emboldened by Brexit. The EU responded by reaffirming its commitment to integration and strengthening internal cohesion. However, the EU faces significant challenges, including nationalism, the Eurozone crisis, and the migration crisis. Brexit weakened the EU's global standing, reducing its leverage in international negotiations. The UK's departure from the EU prompted a reassessment of its place in the world. The government articulated a vision of global Britain, seeking new trade deals and strengthening diplomatic alliances. The UK sought to deepen engagement with the Indo-Pacific region, a key engine of global economic growth. Brexit forced the UK to confront its colonial past and its role in the world. The UK's future place in the world will depend on its economic performance, diplomatic skills, and ability to adapt to a changing global landscape. More than 7 years after the UK voted to leave the EU, Brexit remains a work in progress. The UK's future relationship with the EU is still evolving, with ongoing negotiations on trade and the Northern Ireland Protocol. Brexit has had a profound impact on British politics, dividing the country and political parties. The Conservative Party remains divided over Brexit, with factions advocating different approaches. The Labour Party has struggled to articulate a clear position on Brexit. The long-term consequences of Brexit are still unfolding, with many questions unanswered. The UK's future prosperity, place in the world, and national identity are all up for grabs. Only time will tell what the ultimate legacy of Brexit will be. The evolving landscape requires careful navigation and adaptation. The journey of Brexit is far from over, with many challenges and opportunities ahead.
Sovereignty. Sovereignty, the full right and power of a governing body over itself, without any interference from outside sources or bodies. Example: a key argument for Brexit was the desire to restore full sovereignty to the UK, allowing it to make its own laws without EU intervention. Negotiation. Negotiation, the process by which parties come together to reach an agreement on a particular matter, often requiring compromise. Example: the Brexit negotiations were complex and lengthy, involving debates on trade, legal rights, and the movement of people. Tariff. Tariff, a tax or duty to be paid on a particular class of imports or exports. Example: one of the significant concerns post-Brexit was the potential imposition of tariffs between the UK and EU member countries, which could affect trade costs. Regulation. Regulation, a rule or directive made and maintained by an authority, usually governing economic and social practices. Example: post-Brexit, the UK sought to diverge from certain EU regulations to create a more tailored regulatory environment for its economy. Customs Union. Customs Union, a group of states that have agreed to charge the same import duties and usually allow free trade between themselves. Example: leaving the EU Customs Union meant the UK needed to establish its own trade agreements independently of EU policies. Transition period. Transition period, a designated period following an agreement during which the prior rules remain in effect to allow for adjustment to new rules. Example: the Brexit transition period allowed both the UK and EU to adapt to the new economic and legal realities without immediate disruption.